A draft, generally speaking, at least if you're thinking about fantasy football, we be like a snake draft. A little bit of a shout out to our man Ryan Leskis, but we're going to do things a little bit differently. We are going to draft 5 positions and 1 coach to round out our little team because there's no way that we could draft an entire team. So, coach, we're going to start with quarterback and run down the list of running back, wide receiver, offensive lineman, a defensive player, and ultimately the coach to anchor that squad. And I would like you to go first.
Well, Iceman, you are going to realize there's going to be a trend to my team, and it's a trend that kind of has resounded through this show when we talk about the toughness of the AFC North and that true grit that we're
I knew
looking
it.
for. So I'm going to start out, as you said, with the quarterback position. First overall, I'm taking the undersized yet spirited Mike Winchell from the Permian Panthers in Friday Night Lights, the movie. I couldn't think of a tougher guy to lead my team, so I'm taking Mike.
All right. I like it. Now, I will say that I prefer Friday Night Lights, the show, over Friday Night Lights, the movie.
That's
But
fair.
there you go. And there's criticisms to be had for both. I mean, you could probably criticize every TV or movie that's out there. But I do like that pick. And I had a feeling when you said I'm going to have a theme to my team, that rhymes. I figured you were going to go with that AFC North grit, man, because that's what you're all about. So I think that's a really solid pick. Now, for my quarterback, the quarterback is the most important position on the field. It anchors the team, it is the leader of the team. And sometimes you have guys with a lot of talent, and sometimes you have guys who never live up to their potential but get a second chance. And I am all about guys who get a second chance. And as my man Cleve would say, I love a guy who helps himself. So for my first pick, I am going for Shane Falco from The Replacements.
The true underdog story, The Replacements, good old Shane Falco. That's a great movie. I haven't seen it in a long time. I kind of forget about it once in a while. I think it's a little undervalued in the football movie market.
You're not wrong. I mean, Gene Hackman, I think you even had a John Favreau sighting in that movie. You had Keanu Reeves. There's a lot of guys. I like that movie because it kind of speaks to the idea of these strikes and all that, and how there are players on both sides that are affected by this. And there are a lot of guys who get chances, especially if they bring in replacement players, which they did in baseball a while back. And it's nice to see a guy get a second chance and make the most of that second chance. And so Shane Falco was always very near and dear to my heart, living on a houseboat, for God's sakes. And all the people that talk about how they bet on him during that Sugar Bowl and living with that pain and trauma, but he got his second chance and he got his team to the playoffs.
Yeah, he absolutely did. And there's so many, there's some good characters in that movie that you
Oh, yeah.
mentioned. John Favreau's character, whose name I can't think about at the moment,
Hmm.
I think he's a linebacker, and the coach says, "Hey, give me the ball," and he's out
Oh,
there,
yeah.
give me the ball," going on nuts. And then they have the deaf tight end, and then the
Hmm.
kicker, Nigel Gruff, with smoking a cigarette. He's just out there lining one up. I mean, just so many good characters.
Maybe that's what we need is more football players smoking heaters out there. I don't know. What do you think?
I think it'd be good for the game. Honestly, I'm here for it.
All right. Speaking of good for the game, running back position, a position that in today's NFL has been somewhat devalued, but is not devalued in movies. There are a lot to pick from. So, coach, who is the running back that is anchoring your backfield?
This is a deep position, as you mentioned, and I got a couple here on my list. But I can't pass up the opportunity to take this individual. He does embody the toughness that we're looking for on the coach's team, and he enjoys a nice cold beverage just as much as the next guy. And you know me, line him up. Let's knock him down. I would love nothing more than to celebrate this victory after with my buddy, my tough friend, Tim Riggins. Tim Riggins, I'm taking him from Friday Night Lights, the TV show, to be my running back.
I'm sure all the ladies out there who are familiar with Tim Riggins are very, very happy to see him and his 9-pack underneath that jersey. But man, what a guy, what a polarizing guy, too. It seemed like everything in Dylan gravitated toward him. And sometimes he couldn't get out of his own way, but fundamentally a decent guy, I would say. He's trying.
Yeah, definitely the epicenter of Dylan
Yeah,
and the Dylan Panthers football situation, no doubt.
no doubt. So my running back pick isn't all that dissimilar in terms of what makes the makeup of this particular person. But I had to go back into the archives. I would say it's actually a very, very nuanced pick, something you had to go way into the deep cuts to find. But the running back that I'm choosing is Polk High's Al Bundy.
Iceman, I have to tell you, You're never gonna believe this, or maybe you will, but he was number 2 on my list. If Tim Riggins had not been on the board, Al Bundy was gonna be my choice with the 4 touchdowns against Andrew Johnson High in the 1966 city championship. How do you pass that up? And he's got the toughness to fit on coach's team any day, but I just couldn't you couldn't leave the number 1 guy out there, so I had to take Riggins.
I couldn't agree more. What a show that's completely undervalued and forgotten today. Like Ed O'Neill is known now, I think, for Modern Family, but you go way back, and that show was a little bit ahead of the time. And sometimes when you go back in the archives, you see some uncomfortable things in shows and jokes and tropes and stuff like that. And I understand that, but for the most part, I feel like he nailed that and definitely embodies the everyman. I mean, didn't he sell shoes?
Yeah, I was when I was kinda doing some research for this, the little biography about Al Bundy and his football prowess ended with, suffered a knee injury that prevented him from going on to play college football and pursued a career in selling women's shoes and living with his family that he mostly despised.
Peggy, who ended up being the mom of the Sons of Anarchy, right? So she went
Yeah.
from where she was, and there's a lot of conspiracy theories about how she got there and how that experience with him turned her into that. But I don't know. I was very, very happy. I thought you were going to take him, so I had to have a second pick on deck because I thought there's no way he's not going to take Al Bundy. But you didn't, so Polk High is coming to me, and I couldn't be more excited. Now, moving on to wide receiver, which is a position that is very valued in today's NFL. However, in movies and television, not a lot to choose from. So I think this might be the position where you and I butt heads a little bit in terms of not being able to take a lot of guys. We might be taking some of the same guys. So, Coach, why don't you let me know who your quarterback is going to be throwing to?
So, my quarterback is gonna be an integral part of my team. He's going to need to hold this team together because you're gonna find out as we go through this. I'm gonna have a team that we're gonna have a hard time keeping out of jail. We've already got Riggins on the roster, and to add to the culture of this team, the coaches team, we are taking Charlie Tweeter, wide receiver from Varsity Blues, steals a cop car with a couple chicks, catches the ball in the big game to score. Give me Tweeter.
You know, he's getting laid after that game. Any guy who catches the ball, the game-winning ball in the big game is definitely going to get laid after the game. So, you've got the all jail team and the all laid team, it seems.
Yeah, there's a lot of sex being had on coach's team. No doubt about that.
I can't really argue with that as somebody who was not on the football team and was never that popular to be on the all sex team in high school. You know, if I was going to draft a team like that, I wouldn't have any issue with the guys that you have picked. So, really, really solid pick and maybe a little bit of jealousy on my part. All right, wide receiver for me. So, that means that both of my picks are actually on the board. And I'm very, very excited. And when I look at these two guys, they are completely different guys in their makeup. But as you said, looking at the guys that I've picked already, we have an underdog and we have Al Bundy. So I've got to pick a guy that embodies all of that and is going to will these guys and sometimes maybe a little bit of tough love to get there. And I'm picking Deacon Moss from the Longest Yard remake in 2005, played by Michael Irvin.
That's a solid pick. That's a solid pick. I totally honestly forgot about that character, to be honest with you.
Gonna Moss guys all fucking day. It's gonna be amazing.
I wonder if there was something to that. Maybe is that some sort of a weird tribute to Randy Moss? Michael Irvin's playing the character, last name Moss, or maybe it's just a random name. Who knows?
I don't know, but I don't know if you know my feelings. There's Jerry Rice, there's Randy Moss, and we can start the rest of the conversation on greatest wide receivers of all time after those two.
I agree.
All right. I like it. So our teams are definitely showing a lot of grit here. Now, I will say for wide receiver, the guy that I thought was going to be taken by either of us because he's probably the most popular wide receiver in movies and television was Rod Tidwell from Jerry Maguire, which is a great character, don't get me wrong. But I think when you have Shane Falco and Al Bundy, the show me the money guy, probably not going to fit in on that squad. So I had to take a guy who's actually been to jail and is going to be just a beast out there.
Yeah, I mean, after seeing how Riggins handled his relationship with Smash Williams, who's a similar type of character to Rod
Yeah.
Tidwell, I didn't think it would be good for team chemistry to bring Rod on board, which is why we went with Tweeter.
I like it. So all these guys are going to score a lot of points. They're going to get a lot of yards. But in order to do that, you need an offensive line that's going to be able to protect your quarterback to get the ball to all of these position players. And while we're not going to pick an entire offensive line, we're going to pick one offensive lineman to anchor that staff. So, Coach, why don't you let me know which offensive lineman is going to anchor your line?
Iceman, I'm actually going to go to my second choice here because I feel like he's a better fit. My first choice feels a little dangerous. He may be a liability in certain ways, especially in regards to his health. So I'm going to take my second choice I have, right tackle for the TC Williams Titans, Louis Lastic, not only known for his play on the field, but for his Motown singing ability in the locker room. Louis Lastic it is.
It's my backup pick, by the way. Love myself some Louis Lastic. And by the way, it is no longer TC Williams. It is now the Alexandria City High School, as I found out, because my son takes swim lessons over there. So that long history. Apparently, there TC Williams, there's a lot of problematic stuff in his background and all that. So they've changed it. But in the movie, he does play for TC Williams way, way, way back in the day. I loved me some Louis Lastic because I thought that he was the glue guy. Definitely the kind of guy that tries to get along with everybody and I think was very, very successful. That was my backup pick. And just listening to you talk about your first pick makes me think that that's also my first pick in terms of health concerns, maybe a little bit dangerous, but sometimes you need a guy who's going to sit on the back of a pickup truck with a shotgun, drunk, and getting his, I guess, his sadness out that way with his quarterback Mox sitting right there. So my offensive lineman is going to be Billy Bob from Varsity Blues.
You would be correct. Billy Bob was the number one pick that I had, but I felt like there was already there's too much volatility here on this roster right now, and I don't know if we could add Billy Bob to the mix. I needed the glue guy, like you mentioned, Louis Lastic, hold it all together.
And here's the thing. Billy Bob is going to get along with a lot of these other guys. And Shane Falco is 100% going to keep him in line, make sure he sees the eye on the prize, make sure he feels real good about himself, because that's the kind of leader that Shane Falco is. And I just think that, yeah, Billy Bob might be a liability, maybe some off the field concerns if Mel Kiper was going through this. But honestly, I think that right here is where you add him to this team. And that's where a lot of times you end up adding guys to teams and, you just have to, work with guys that are going to fit into the scheme with guys that can help them out. And so that's why I think if he was added to a bunch of guys that were volatile and maybe a little bit of concerns, then I think that there is a little bit of a liability there. But I don't feel that with this team. And I want to thank Dave, who's coming up at 1:00, who's letting us know about what the TC Williams issues were. I wasn't actually read up on it, but I knew they changed the name. And it makes a lot of sense if you think about Virginia, Northern Virginia, the Confederacy, and all that stuff. So thanks to Dave. And you will see Dave, in about 42 minutes, Dave. So I hope that you are preparing and you are not in your pajamas. And you will see them as part of Political Football coming up real shortly. So we got two more people to draft. And now a defense. Defense wins championships, as we both know. And again, there's not enough people out there to draft an entire defense, but I want to draft one defensive player that is going to be the field general out there that is going to keep our troops from getting scored upon. So, Coach, please let me know, what is the defensive player you are looking to take?
So again, I feel like there's a lot of ways you could go with this pick. I think that there's kind of in my mind at least, a very obvious number one here, but I'm going to steer clear because I feel like the number one is a little too gimmicky, at least too much for the coach's team. And again, I told you, I'm looking for the right guys. I'm looking for that grit and that toughness, which is why I'm taking Stefan Georgievic from All the Right Moves, cornerback for the Ampipe Bulldogs, who is ultimately driven to leave his dying Pennsylvania steel town, which is right up the coach's alley. So give me Georgievic from the Ampipe Bulldogs to anchor my defense.
Never seen that movie, I'll be honest with you. Maybe I need to add it to the queue.
It's decent. It's not great. It's got good parts. The coach is a jerk, and really he butts heads with the coach the whole time. And his dad works at, like I said, the steel mill that's getting ready to close. He's trying to get out of there and go to like Cal Poly or something for college. He wants to be, I think, like an engineer. And he's kind of trapped in that weird thing of like, if I don't get out of here, I'm going to get stuck being my father. And he gets himself into a little trouble throughout the movie. And of course, there's a love story to go along with it as usual.
Just without the terrible, I don't want your life.
Exactly.
All right, so defensive player. There's a lot of defensive guys to choose from. And as you pointed out, you want to get the right guy for the system. But you know what? I actually want to get the right girl for the system because I think that there are a lot of things that embody what my team is all about here. So to anchor my defense, linebacker from the Little Giants, Becky, the Icebox O'Shea.
Solid pick. Solid pick. She crossed my mind for sure. And the number one pick I was talking about was the Water Boy, Bobby
You
Boucher,
know,
right?
yes. As I was driving in the car a couple days ago, this is where my life is at, by the way, for anybody who's watching and wants to know what my wife goes through. We're driving back from somewhere, and I said, babe, I'm trying to think about this draft, and I think everybody's going to expect us to take Bobby Boucher. And there's just silence on the other end of the car because why the hell does she care about that? But I agree with you. I felt like, now I understand what people like that movie. I was never a huge fan, and now that I think your mileage on Adam Sandler probably varies there, but in terms of my team, too volatile, way too volatile, and I just didn't think it was the right move here. And you got Becky the Icebox. I mean, the Icebox, what a great nickname.
Absolutely. And I mean, really at a time before we saw, more and more we're seeing men and women becoming integrated in certain sports together, and that was ahead of that time. And she was a killer, man, stone cold killer.
I totally, totally agree. What an underrated movie too. It's definitely a '90s movie when you talk about the type of tropes that are in it. But I don't know. I always liked it. Maybe it's a nostalgia thing. And is it a good movie in terms of like Oscar? No, of course not. But is it fun in terms of football? I mean, the annexation of Puerto Rico, the all Madden team showing up on the bus. I mean, that's just great stuff.
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie. I considered taking Hot Hands Hanen as my receiver with the
Love it.
stickum, so
Totally love it. Yeah, we need a good
absolutely.
stick 'em on the team. We got to cheat a little bit. I mean, this is a team, you can bend the rules a little bit as far as I'm concerned. However, we have gotten to the end here. So you have your team. And in order for this team to succeed, you need a good coach. Now, I will admit, coach is probably one of the deepest in terms of rosters in all of these movies. There's a lot of people to choose from. And there's some cliched picks that maybe you could make. But I think that each of us is going to pick the guy that's going to be able to get the squad to where they need to go, keep this team in line. And I would love if we could somehow simulate this in Madden or something like that. But we will see. So, coach, please let me know who your coach is going to be for this fantasy team.
Well, like you mentioned, this is a deep pool, and trying to find a guy that's going to be able to hold this team together that has experience in dealing with some of the issues that may arise with some of these players and has that innate ability to really pull the best out of his team. And that is why I'm choosing Coach Eric Taylor from Friday Night Lights, the TV show. He's got experience with Riggins. He knows how to handle that type of behavior and get the best out of those guys. And come on, clear eyes, full hearts, can't lose, can't beat that.
I had a feeling that's where you were going to go. I mean, actually, a great coach figure. I actually liked him in the later seasons of the show when he was with East Dillon. Actually, my second pick for quarterback was Vince Howard, Michael B. Jordan's character, because I just love those seasons and just the grit of the team and everything they had to go through. It was a completely different direction than the first few seasons where you thought, how long are they going to play this out where he's at the big school and can't win the big game or whatever? And I loved it. So I do like that pick. Now, I will point out something because on the Pub Time podcast, which is Brad's other podcast that you should support, they did a MILF draft. I want to say it was like 6 months ago. And I
At
believe,
least.
correct me if I'm wrong, Connie Britton was your gal.
Connie Britton was on my list, man. Love me some Tammy Taylor, Connie Britton. And she's getting up there in age, but she's aging like a fine wine.
Yeah, so I'm not surprised that you're taking that coach so that you can get yourself in, to some Tammy Taylor, maybe even sneak a little date there, get some Connie Britton action. I mean, I see where you're going with this.
I don't know about all that, but maybe I'll at least get invited to the barbecue after the game.
That would actually be fun. I mean, Texas barbecue, how can you go wrong with that? Depends on your flavor. If you like Kansas City, maybe some Memphis, but either way, barbecue is great. Okay, so coach, I need to pick one. And now that was actually not a guy that was on my list. Now, the guy that I'm looking at on my list, who's my first pick, maybe a little bit too on the nose. While great coach and a great human being or a great, a great, what's the word I'm looking for? Portrayal of a human being in TV and movies, I feel like I need to go with my number 2 pick because I'm looking at these personalities and there's a lot of personalities to be had. And maybe, just maybe, I need a little bit of a player's coach who's got a lot of guys on his staff that are people, people persons or whatever you want to call it. So for me, my coach, I am taking Hayden Fox from the show, Coach, played by Craig T. Nelson.
Nice pick. I'm curious who your number one was. My other one I had on my list, just for reference was Jack Lingle, the head coach from We Are Marshall, portrayed by Matthew McConaughey, had a very unique approach. Basically, I mean, literally resurrected the program from the ashes of the terrible plane crash that killed basically everyone on the team and every coach. And just his character, and I think it's part of it's the way that Matthew McConaughey plays it and his
Yeah.
personality. But very engaging and interesting, and one I would consider if Eric Taylor wasn't available.
My number one was Herman Boone from Remember the Titans. And I say it's too on the nose because that movie was very heavy handed in what they were trying to accomplish, which was a great endeavor. And it's a feel good movie for me anyway. But when I look at the makeup of the team, I don't know. I needed something a little bit different. I needed a zig where everybody else was zagging in terms of my team. So I went with Coach, which is a show that's been, God, long gone. And Craig T. Nelson is old now, but didn't he have like Jerry Van Dyke on his squad and stuff like that? So I mean, I felt like he was a guy who was kind of a people guy and was going to be able to get these people where they needed to go and maybe be able to talk through some things. And with a leader like Shane Falco, I think there's a lot of potential there. So I like where we are headed here. This is fun. If you are listening or watching, please let us know who you would draft if you were looking at a fantasy player or a fantasy team from footballs and movies. There's a lot of people that we didn't choose, and this is just a fun little exercise. It's the Super Bowl, man. You got to do a little bit of a draft. And the last time I was live on here was actually the draft back in April. So kind of tying it all together. And I thought that that was fun, but there's a lot of things that we could do. Maybe we'll do this again sometime. Maybe at the beginning of the football season, we'll relook at some of these movies and TV shows, but we would love to know. Follow us on Twitter at Iceman and Coach is the handle. And you can always find Matty Ice Media on Twitter at Matty Ice Media is the handle for that.